And check 1, 2. Bonjour. Welcome back to the show. My name is Michael Lyons, and I'm the creator of GOFUNDME, NANABOOZHOO, the podcast about Ojibwe language and culture. And tonight, I have to prepare for a live show. We're going to be taking the show on the road in about a month. And I'm also trying to book some gigs at nursing homes. Now, the problem is, after so many years doing the GOFUNDME, NANABOOZHOO podcast live, I'm really most comfortable writing my material in front of an audience. So I thought tonight I would just go live because, first of all, nobody ever watches my live stream when it's just me. So I've got a second camera here. I'm going to film this. Click. Take two. And, okay, I got about half an hour left on the camera. So for the next half hour, I'm going to try to give you a taste of what I'm thinking about doing for the live show. And if you show up for some reason, say hello. All right. So it starts out, people come in the room, a little music in the background. Somebody announces, Michael Lyons, ladies and gentlemen. And people clap. And I come out with this guy. I'm on a stage and we'll have a microphone, but you will totally see me. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. My name is Michael Lyons. I am the creator of the GOFUNDME, NANABOOZHOO podcast. It's a puppet podcast on YouTube that teaches the Ojibwe word and phrase of the day. And I also discuss Ojibwe culture and tell stories. But I do it all with puppets. Now, I wonder, there's probably some people right now who are here that have never seen the show. And so tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about what the show is like. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And also I would like to discuss the art of ventriloquism. I know there's probably some people here tonight who saw the picture and were thinking, oh, cool, Michael's kind of like that Jeff Dunham guy. He's going to come out here and do ventriloquism. Because you see, in ventriloquism, the artist never moves his lips. So you'll notice when Michael speaks, he never moves his lips. Go ahead, show him. Hello, everyone. Right? We're not Jeff Dunham. I'm not Jeff Dunham. What we do is probably closer to Sesame Street. You know, what was that guy's name? Jim Henson. You know, my hero. Jim Henson was, the creator of Sesame Street and that. And what we do is more like that. But tonight, you're just going to see Michael's lips move because he can't do that thing. And quite frankly, it's a pretty outdated parlor trick. I mean, to speak without moving your lips. Number one, nowadays, you can just record yourself beforehand, remember what you said, and then just, it would be easy to fake. And number two, like one time I was doing some research for our show, and I was like, what is Jeff Dunham's show like? I heard he was one of the highest paid entertainers in the world. Jeff Dunham. He's the one with the puppet, like after 9/11, he had a terrorist puppet that was blown up. That was really sensitive. But I watched his show, and he was in an auditorium with thousands of people. There had to be over 2,000 people. And there were people who were sitting way far away who couldn't even see his mouth at all, you know. And I'm like, what is the point of his show? Here's a grown man pretending, and nobody's fooled. Nobody ever looks at a ventriloquist and go, how's he doing that? You know? But anyway, that doesn't matter. Today I want to talk about Ojibwe language and culture and why we do what we do. So, I grew up in a very small town, just off of the Leech Lake Reservation. My town was called LaPorte, Minnesota. And our town was so small, the welcome to LaPorte and you are now leaving LaPorte sign was written on the same side. No, but it was that small. You ever see those old John Cougar Mellencamp videos from the 80s and be talking about growing up in a small town? With the dusty dirt roads, a single, traffic light, and farms. And then they showed like the population of his town. It would have been like 5,000 people. I'm like, our town had 114. I could have named the people in our town that I grew up in. But we were a real town. We had a school, we had one street, we had a main street that eventually turned into a gravel road that eventually turned into the public landing. If you just drove downtown, you would end up in the lake. Otherwise, we were a speed trap town. We were one of those weird little towns in the middle of the woods. If you're not from there, you don't know what's coming up. And you cruise along at 55, and then out of nowhere, there's a 35 mile an hour speed limit. And 10 feet after that, or right around the corner, is a bar. If we had any police, people would have gotten tickets, but we weren't even big enough to have a police department. Got a volunteer fire department that's made up of like 2 guys. Don't have cars. No. Anyway, so all this started actually because I was a cartoonist. My lifelong dream was to become either a rock star or a cartoonist. You might be able to see back there, I've got a book called Rockstar Cartoonist. So I grew up drawing cartoons of rock stars, especially Kiss. You notice I'm wearing my Kiss t-shirt. But, so I grew up and I did comic strips, I did illustrations, and it was just on the artist's journey, the hero's quest or whatever, to become an artist. Along the way, I went to college and I started working in colleges as an admissions counselor there. I was always the Native American blank. Oh, here's our Native American representative here at Concordia College. And my job would be to go out and talk other Indian kids into going to college. But then, in between, in the evenings and weekends and stuff, I would just draw comic strips. Finally, my path led to Leech Lake Tribal College, where I got to know an elder named Benny Tontz, who was the Ojibwe language instructor and the drum and dance instructor and my office mate. And he was a friend of my grandmother's. He was in his 80s. And we would have lots of talks where he'd talk about the good old days. And I was also learning Ojibwe. My grandparents were both boarding school survivors. My grandfather was an Ojibwe from Bena, and my grandmother was a Dakota from Boy River. If you're from the small towns in northern Minnesota, you might have heard of these places. If you're not within 50-mile radius of my hometown, you probably never heard of them. But anyway, so my grandma and grandpa both went to Indian boarding school. My grandfather ran away 4 times. My grandmother, she excelled. She loved boarding school. She became a teacher. She became a Christian. And anytime I would talk about all the you know, about internalized oppression, about historical trauma, about, you know, the lasting effects of the boarding schools. She'd always be quick to go, I don't care what you say. I loved boarding school. We had a basketball team. I remember honestly, Michael, she'd always say that, honestly. But before I get deeper into that, you know, I grew up around Indians, but they never taught me my language. They didn't encourage, you know, our history and our family. All this stuff was very, I don't know, they just wouldn't talk about it. And, you know, my elders didn't teach me Indian stuff like racing or hunting or the language and stuff like that. On the show, I talk about it was the first time my grandfather ever spoke Ojibwe to me. I was 6 years old, and I got up just early with him, and he made me a little cup of coffee with cream and sugar in it. I'm kind of rushing through these songs, or these stories, but I'll get to it all. And I remember he looked at me, and I'm 6 years old, by the way. You know, and he goes, you know what they call that in Indian, don't you? And the little 6-year-old man was like, no, what do they call that in Indian? He didn't call it Ojibwe. He goes, that's Makare Mushkiki Wabu. It means black medicine water. And I was like, what? Say it again. He goes, Makare Mushkiki Wabu. And I practiced it and stuff, and I tried to see if he could, you know, am I saying this right, Grandpa? You know. It was always a sweet memory to me, and years later, I would start a comic strip that would teach Ojibwe, and I taught that word. And sometimes I go into classes and talk about my grandfather and his boarding school experience, and that when he taught me a little Ojibwe. Now the reality was, that was the only Ojibwe he taught me. I had to learn everything else after I grew up. One of the things they say about boarding school generation Indians is that they didn't like speaking Ojibwe. By the time they got through school, they had no interest in teaching the language to their kids. You know, it was the next generation that would start the American Indian movement. But so I grew up without my culture and language and all this stuff, and I started learning it. And the best way to learn it is to teach it. So I started teaching it in comic strips. And then I wrote my first Ojibwe language children's book and illustrated it, called Dog and Maingan, where it taught you how to count to 10 in Ojibwe. And, you know, I went on and wrote other books and stuff like that, did a collection, did some coloring books, some comic books. And started sharing it on Facebook. Well, people started writing in saying, hey, this is cool, but how do you pronounce? You know, the word for blueberry pie is like, I don't know how many letters. But to say it, it's Mina Bashki Mina Sagani Batusi Jagani Bakwajigan. It's ridiculous. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to get some puppets, and I'll pull out the laptop camera, and I'll get up there, and I'll just say, you know, I'll buy a little puppet, and I'll put a wig on him, maybe a bone choker, you know, I just gave him clothes I had, and bandana on his head, and I called it Boozhoo NANABOOZHOO. I had this little Indian guy up there with a thick, I basically stole the accent from the movie Smoke Signals. Remember Thomas Builds a Fire? He was all like, hey, Victor, where's your dad? Well, if you take that accent and you add it with a little DJ voice, and you got, you know, NANABOOZHOO. Okay, hey, Victor, where's your dad? So I started doing this character called NANABOOZHOO, who would teach the Ojibwe word. Oh, along the way, I learned enough Ojibwe to become an Ojibwe teacher myself. And for 3 years, I taught Ojibwe at a high school in Bemidji. But I would not speak with this thick accent unless I was using my puppet. Anyway, so then NANABOOZHOO took off. He had a girlfriend named Natasha that I, of course, voiced to. Pretty soon I was doing a live stream improv comedy routine, basically. We'd have celebrity guests call in. It'd be like, NANABOOZHOO would be talking. And, today's Ojibwe word is manumin, wild rice. And then you'd hear Natasha go, "Hey, sweetie." He'd be like, "Yeah?" "Because you got to call line 1. "Oh, okay, hang on." You pick up the phone. "Yeah, caller, you're on the air." And the caller might be, like the Queen of England. "Hello, love. What's all this then?" "Oh, I'm practicing for my live show." "Oh, that's me." "Who is this?" "Well, it's me. It's the Queen Mum, it is." "Queen Elizabeth?" "Oh, that's right. I'm calling from heaven, I am." "Oh, that's awesome. I thought you were dead." "I am dead. I'm in heaven," I said. "Oh, right. So you want to learn an Ojibwe word?" "What's the Ojibwe word for tea? I'm having a spot of tea." "Oh, well, tea is anibishabu. Anibishabu, that's like hot tea. Anibish is for tea, the leaf. But for tea that you sip and you heat up, we say anibishabu. Anibishabu. Oh, that's quite lovely. Yeah, it's Ojibwe. I like to learn the Ojibwe words of the day. How do you say goodbye in Ojibwe? Well, we don't really say goodbye, Queen. We say, "I will see you again." Gigawaba min. Minawa. Oh, gigawaba min. Minawa, love. Yep, gigawaba min. Minawa. And then, we'd have all kinds of this funny make-up jokes on the spot. But it's definitely, this is our green screen. The show is very dependent on green screen special effects. The whole set, it takes place, it's in this room, but I've made efforts to green screen the windows so it looks like different weather. Also, NANABOOZHOO and Natasha teleport around. They'll go up to the moon and have discussions, or out in the woods and say a prayer. I've taught Ojibwe prayers and stuff like that. So, that's in a nutshell what I do and what I'm about. Now it's been almost 17 minutes. I better shift gears. I'm seeing this isn't a very funny stand-up routine, but whatever. So, the latest addition to our... Actually, you know what? Bigfoot. I'm going to bring out Bigfoot. In Ojibwe culture, Bigfoot's very interesting. And we don't use him enough. So up next, ladies and gentlemen, Bigfoot. Hey, Dr. Evils. Welcome to the show. I'm practicing for my live show coming up. And I'm taping myself. This is sort of in real time, me trying to work out some material. So that was the intro with the Michael puppet. I've done it before, and when you go into a classroom, it's really easy. Because kids in a classroom are expected to be taught something. They're not really there to be entertained. When I've done live shows with NANABOOZHOO and Natasha, like on a stage, I spend a lot of time singing songs and talking about my life in the show. But it doesn't do justice to the Boozhoo NANABOOZHOO podcast. Yeah, practice makes perfect, exactly. So I'm trying to work out what the show might look like if I did it without NANABOOZHOO and Natasha. So, in Ojibwe, the word for Bigfoot is actually Sabe. I mean, Sabe doesn't mean Bigfoot. Sabe is short for the word Misabe, which means giant. You might have heard of the Misabe Iron Range. Well, this is Sabe, also known as Sasquatch. And he's very into, I wouldn't say self-improvement so much as like believing in yourself. Oh, that's right. Sabe is my name in Ojibwe, I would say. Sabe an indigenous cause. And what you want me to say, Michael? Do you want to explain the significance of Bigfoot with the Ojibwe? Oh, I suppose that's right. You see, in Ojibwe, the Ojibways, the Anishinaabe, they got this thing called the 7 Anishinaabe values. Sometimes it's called the 7 grandfather teachings. You've got your eagle, which represents love. Makwa, the bear, he represents courage. There's a turtle, he represents, what, truth? Yeah, I think so. Dabwewin, you know. But Sabe, we represent honesty. Honesty is a very important, one of the 7 Anishinaabe values. So I'm going to be honest with you right now. You'll have to believe in yourself. Do you have any idea what it's like when people do not believe in yourself, in you? Nobody believes in me. Actually, that's not true. Some people believe in me. I believe in you. Yeah, I believe in you too, Michael. You keep it up. But you must believe. They say, you will see it. Wait, how's that saying go? Do not say, I will believe it when I see it. You believe it, and then you will see it. You must get it in your mind, what it is you want to manifest. Because you see, life is the law of attraction. Oh, don't get into that. No, I'm telling you, Oprah was right. You have to envision. You got to make a vision board. No. Anyway, I am Sabe, and I play. I am Bigfoot, and I'm not sure about my accent. It's slightly English. It might be a little bit Irish. It's got a whisper to it. I do not know. But this is my voice, and this is who I am. How many people are watching our show right now? I think Dr. Evils might be the only one. Let's see. Oh, there's 2 people. Obujo gakina awia. Hello, everybody. Don't we have an Ojibwe word of the day? In fact, I think it's that one. Gakina awia. Everybody. Gawin awia. Nobody. Do you feel like a nobody? Do you feel like nobody cares, nobody believes in you? Well, let me tell you, I believe in you. I know what it feels like. All right. Do you want to talk about aliens next? Oh, I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, Sabe. Miigwech Gabizan Dawayeg. Thank you for listening. You know, all this Ojibwe works on the show, but I don't know if it's going to work for our comedy set. It might not. Maybe you should just start talking. Okay. Sabe, everybody. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really starting to worry. 23 minutes and 15 seconds. There weren't many jokes. On the show, it's very easy to, improv comedy. Shut that off. But here's the other problem. I might as well just get out of the way. I don't know what to do about how dark NANABOOZHOO and Natasha are. When I do the show, it really works well how dark they are because you have to kind of flood them with light to use the green screen and stuff. And so I color correct it and they turn out pretty brown. When I'm on a stage with a spotlight and it gets right outside, NANABOOZHOO starts to look pretty African American. I mean, I guess he's brown there. But I was watching the video of my show in Little Falls, and it looked like I was up there with somebody from Kenya. Okay, hey, Boozhoo. Now I know that if I got up there, I could just do a full hour show. Especially if it wasn't you there. I could just talk. Maybe I should anyway. So this is not a NANABOOZHOO for new people. Okay. Because the problem is in Puppet Land, maybe I could just explain this. There's only two races. There's white Caucasians and black. And or I could have gotten a green one, you know. But I had to buy the head, and then I just, you know, decorated up everything, try to make him look Indian. It was really dark. All right, this camera is going to go off in about 5 minutes. So, not feeling real inspired. I feel like I need to tell more jokes and stuff. So, great. The other day, I think it was yesterday, again, I don't have a pick. Today's live stream of me trying to flesh out a live comedy show and failing at it. Yikes, now I'm getting nervous. In 3 weeks, I'll have my highest paying gig ever at the Big Top Chautauqua. I gotta go there and introduce this bizarre puppet show I have on YouTube. And be funny. As funny as any stand-up comedian. So I'm going to need real material. The other day I already talked about different Ojibwe words. But like if I do a show at a nursing home, they're not going to want to hear about all the Ojibwe stuff. These are old people who are near death. They're going to want to hear jokes about why their kids never visit. I don't know, man. If you're still here, ask me a question. Ask me anything. Tonight's rockstar cartoonist quitting weed. Ask me anything. Because I don't know how this is going to work. Introduce myself, talk about how I ended up teaching Ojibwe. Throw in jokes in there that aren't mean-spirited. Don't rely on them sharing my values. Stand-up comedy, especially improv comedy, is much harder than it looks. Throw it against the wall, see if it sticks. All right. Dr. Evils, can you give me a subject that has to do, just say anything. Let me see if I can improv something. Or I'll just make fun of your name, Dr. E. Vales. Flowers. All right. If you should fall into my arms, tremble like... How's that go? Because my love for you would break my heart in two. If you should fall into my arms and tremble like a flower. Flowers. So, I've bought flowers for girls before. Because I'm from the 80s. And I am also, I don't know, I was raised on that old world chivalry, you know, like 1950s. Oh, thank you. 1950s values of courtship and stuff. You know, the man, even in the 80s, you know, my dates, it was almost like a Victorian where you would try to woo the woman. You have to get to know her and charm her and stuff, and then get her number, and then you would call her on the phone for a while, and then you would ask her out on a proper date of dinner and a movie, and then a quick drive out to the lake, half-hour makeout session, back home by 10 o'clock. Where you had picked her up at 7 or 6 or whatever it was, and met her parents, and got the evil look. I remember buying flowers in high school for the girl I was dating. I bought a corset. But the dumbest time I ever bought flowers was I met a woman at a powwow once. I snagged a girl at a powwow, as they say. And I was going to go visit her. And on the way there, I went into the flower place and said, listen, I don't know what I'm looking for. I'm going to go visit a girl. We just started dating. Can you get me like a bouquet of flowers? And they're like, sure, no problem. When the back room came out, they were like, $45, please. I said, crap. All right. And they gave me this enormous, it looked like the kind of flowers like Miss America would get. Or that you'd have at a funeral. But I didn't know any better. And I put it in the back seat. Stunk up my car because it was, $50 worth of flowers. I can't even tell what the kinds they were. I should have just bought roses, but I knew roses had too much meaning. You can't show up on a first date with red roses. And by the time I got there, I just pulled one out and I went, that's so stupid. I'm an artist. I could have gone to a place and bought flowers. Okay, I hate to admit this. I'm not the most masculine man you've ever met. But if I'm picking wildflowers, which I've also done for like my mother or my grandmother, I have an eye. I can find the beautiful flowers, find the baby's breath, find some ferns, wrap it up in something gorgeous, and have a wildflower bouquet that's more beautiful than anything you see at a flower shop. But I didn't trust my own instincts. I go down there and I see her kid, who was like 4. I went, hey, you want some flowers? And I gave him this enormous Miss America bouquet of flowers, and I gave her a single one. That date in the end didn't go so well. A little background on me. I'm a 56-year-old bachelor. I've never married. I've never had a girlfriend since college. I've had dates. I've had romances, short, intense. I've been in love with a lot of women, but I haven't been in a love relationship. I've never been a boyfriend as a post-college. I want to say as a grown-up almost. Because that woman I was just talking about, went to visit, who I met at a powwow. I tried to do the modern dating thing where, okay, this is helpful. Thank you, Dr. Evils. I'm working out material, but this isn't going to be nursing home material. The woman, this is the inherent problem of the powwow hookup. Because you meet at a powwow, you talk, and then whatever, but she's from another town. So your first date is, it's a journey to get there. It's an assumed overnight, which also assumes, bedroom time. And so I was only so into her. I was just kind of going through the motions. I'd met her. She looked pretty good. But I wasn't that, I wasn't wild about having to drive so many hours to visit her. I didn't like that she had a kid who was also, she's a terrible mom. If your kid is a nightmare to be with, I love children. I didn't like this kid. He was like 4 and huge. He looked like a 7 or 8-year-old, but he had the mentality of a 4-year-old. So he was like a Down syndrome kid without the sweetness. He was just out of control. But I said early on, by the way, I want you to know that this is really cool what's going on. But if you want to date other people, I don't want you to feel like you've got to lie to me or hide it, let's just be cool and, friends with benefits or whatever. Cool. So I saw her the one time. We came home. We talked on the phone, and we planned for a second date. She was going to come visit me. And again, it was the assumed overnight. And she goes, hey, by the way, I was at the Monoman powwow and had a date with a guy. Thought I'd tell you, because of our agreement. I went, oh, yeah, totally cool. I'm not jealous. And she goes, yep, we came back to my place at during the dinner hour. And then later that night, I met another guy, and I brought him home that night. So it was like 2 guys in one day. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not cool with this at all. I was like, gross. But I didn't say anything at first. I was like, yeah, okay. Well, see you Friday. Click. And then I thought about it. I was like, oh, gross. No, I'm not. I can't be that. I'm not part of this new generation. And she was quite a bit younger than me, too. She wasn't from the 80s. They said, I heard this article, listened to a guy talk on the radio once about dating norms and how Generation X had different norms. They said, there were people who would sleep together and weren't in a relationship. But in the 80s, Generation X, sex and relationships were intertwined. Nowadays, with millennials and Generation Z or whatever they are, there'll be people who are dating, who are couples, but they don't sleep together. And then one of those couples will sleep with somebody, but don't think of them as any kind of romantic thing. It's the Wild West, man. And I couldn't handle it all. And I thought to myself, I'm calling her back. I'm going to tell her not to come. And this was still pre-cell phone. So I had her number on a slip of paper, and I was looking around for it. And I remember thinking to myself, if I can find your number, you are toast. Found the number, called her up, and told her listen, I'm not cool with this at all. I, I think that's pretty disgusting. Please don't visit me on Friday. Let's not do this. And she starts crying and she's really upset. And she goes, listen, you told me that we could date other people and that you wouldn't get upset. And I said, yeah, I know I said that, but I just think we both handled this terribly, but the damage is done. And I loved that line. We both handled this terribly, but the damage is done. And so I didn't see her again. Dating women is exhausting. Being married is a pleasant commitment with good times and bad. Married 28 of my 57 years here in this realm. Wow, so we are the same age essentially, and you've been married for 28 years. Good for you. Huh. Yeah, you're a dying breed. And I have a lot of respect for it. I think it's the only hope we have for humanity are family people. Do you guys have kids? And it's weird that I say this. I've never had kids, never been married. I think most women I've met are not only not wife material, they're undateable. Women are so damaged by feminism and child support from the government. You know, most women I've had anything to do with had their children before they were 25 and had nothing to do with the dads of their children. High school sweetheart with 2 adult kids, 1 is married. You see, because you also gave good example of what married life is like if your kid chose to get married. Wow. Respect. Even though most married couples I've ever known, I have no respect for their relationship. That's one thing people don't know about bachelors is that, they're always like, I can't understand why Michael's never met a woman, you know. But they think I have like a circle of single friends. Single people don't necessarily hang around with each other. But we also don't hang around with couples. I remember a friend of mine from work invited me to her house for a dinner party. And I was like, cool, a dinner party. That sounds classy. And I was like in my 40s at the time. And, I put on cool clothes and thought, awesome, dinner party. Maybe I'll meet a girl. And I get there and there were 6 couples, 6 girls, 6 guys, and me. And I was like, crap, I'm at a couples party. I'm not going to meet anybody here. And I'm not going to network and meet like the sister of somebody. I'm going to have to endure couples conversations. The thing is, with married people, they have a whole history and a whole don't go there background. There's so many like minefields and you can't talk about stuff. Like I had a friend once, and this is the other thing. We'll have friends, but like most of my guy friends, I can't even remember their wives' names. I'm always super nice to them, but I'm always secretly like, oh crap, he brought her. If I've been in a band and the guy, his wife comes to practice, or even when they come to the gigs, and you're like, she's here by herself. We're going to be playing on stage all night. She's in a bar by herself. Isn't this boring for her? But anyway, we single people secretly hate our friends' married or significant other. And we especially hate having to talk to both of you guys at the same time. Because you're always closer to one than the other. I saw a high school friend of mine the other day in Walmart. And I met his wife. I've met them 3 times in recent years. But I hadn't seen him in 20, 30 years. And so I was thrilled to see him. But his wife will not shut the hell up. she dominates the conversation. She's in my face. She's telling me stuff about their kid. And I keep trying to go, yeah, okay. So, Harold, how are you? But she won't let it go. And you go, oh, okay, this is a married couple. You have to talk to them both. It was the same thing with my sister and her former husband, her late husband. You call them up on FaceTime or whatever, and they'd both be sitting there. So you can't say stuff like, how's the marriage going? You know? Yeah, so sometimes married people are a drag, but I do respect that you got the girl in the 80s. You probably at some point had to stand outside her window with a boombox over your head playing Peter Gabriel. But you made a vow. I don't know if you're religious, but you made a vow in a church to God, to the community, to her, and you've kept it. People get divorced so casually. You're never allowed to have any opinion on that. But secretly, friends of you divorced people, we all kind of feel like you're losers. Yeah, that's what my show can be. Open letters to people I would never say in real life. Divorced people. We act like we care. We don't really care. After the long talk and the and your single friends are just trying to read, what do you want to hear? Do you need encouragement to leave her? Do you need encouragement to stay with her? You're not going to get my real opinion because the last time we were here, I said all kinds of hateful things about your wife. And then you guys got back together, and we now both know that I called your wife these horrible things. So you can't be honest with your married friends. My wife hated to be around my buddy's wife, and she drank slurring her words and mumbling. Oh, yeah, that's another thing. I'm not jealous of married people, because you immediately just inherit their friends and their family. And their best friend might be a slurring alcoholic drag. And you got to endure it. You can't say anything unless they say it first and you can, yeah, she sure is a drunk. But mostly you really just can't say anything. Many of my alcoholic friends never got married. Oh, really? Well, yeah, the alcoholics are the problem. They're the ones making all the kids, but they've got no stability. And alcoholics, addicts in general, are liars. They can't be trusted. Yeah, it's tough to be married to an alcoholic. We could get into the spiritual aspects of alcohol. What it's really done to society, to our bodies, to our relationships. The subtle way that it has destroyed us. I quit drinking probably going on 7 years ago. Long enough that I don't count. And I am an addict. I'm addicted to marijuana, nicotine, and caffeine. And alcohol probably, but I started drinking when I was 14 and, was a textbook Midwestern, small town, rural binge drinker and regular social drinker and functional alcoholic. But at the same time, when I finally decided to quit, after many years of thinking about it and kind of half-assed going, I should really quit. And I weaned myself off a little bit. The way alcoholics kind of rationalize. I only have 2 beers, usually, every 24 hours. And every 3 days you have 4 beers. But, That's how you lie to yourself when you're an alcoholic too. But when I did finally decide to quit, I figured out that little trick that people often talk about in recovery. I set my mind to it where I decided to identify as a non-drinker. I had worked out what I really felt about alcohol. Thought it was the least attractive of all the drugs. I thought it made you look, and myself included, the ugliest. It made you fat, gave you ugly facial features, and the way you behaved when you were drunk was at the lowest. It also made people behave at their worst, whether it was fighting or having sex or just the most degraded lifestyle stuff you always did when you were drunk. And then my depression. I always knew it was a depressant, and I always knew... This is the weird thing. I was depressed, but I never paid attention to my anxiety. I was depressed, but I was also filled with anxiety that I didn't even know. I just thought... I knew I was depressed, but I just thought, well, doesn't everybody? I just thought I was neurotic and, overthinking things and stuff. But I had anxiety. And the alcohol did relax me at the end of the day because my nerves were shot. Whether from the time I was 14 until I was middle-aged, the issues changed in my life, but the anxiety and the physical feeling was always the same. And alcohol helped, numb that a little bit. But again, then alcohol also made my life worse in every other way. Whether it was financially, all the money I was spending on it, the relationships I had that were all centered around drinking were all toxic. It's socially acceptable to drink. That's the weird thing too. I saw through my own lies. It took me about 6 months of being the non-drinker in a band that played in bars to start feeling like superior to drinkers, to look down on them. I hated the way my friends behaved when they were drunk and I was sober. And I loved the way they behaved when I was drunk with them. I love your ability to look away. Well, it wasn't easy. And in that one case, I did pull it through. But it's a challenge for me. Flat Earth and seeing the lies took a ton off my shoulders. Yeah, that's right, Dr. Evils. You woke up too. That is a big part of all this too. I became, I don't want to say it religious or even a Christian. I had always been spiritual, always been a prayer and a seeker. And I'd explored a lot of religions, especially Christianity and native traditional spiritual practices. But when I discovered all those videos disproving the globe earth, my mind got blown because to me that looked like it was proof of Satan. I was like, who else could deceive the entire world for generations? Who could be behind Hollywood and all TV and education and Darwinism? And it just came to a point where, a creator. And who would be motivated to hide the existence of the creator? Because I never became an atheist. But I was raised, the adults didn't teach me much, but I was spiritually minded and I went to church and I was philosophical. So I was always praying, thinking about God and wondering about these things. But by the time I was in elementary school and learning about things like evolution and just science in general, but mostly just learned that school was teaching there are scientists who've proven stuff that contradicts the Bible. And that Christians want schools to teach the Bible, but that's just a religion. Those stories aren't real because science has proven, there was never a great flood on the earth. Science has proven that the earth wasn't created in 6 days. And I started going, well, if the Bible's not true, how much, what is true? I still felt like there was God because there was creation. But I started to mock the idea of there being a devil. It's like, why? Just because you don't believe in Jesus, they're going to send you to hell forever? That doesn't sound very fair. But then, after I discovered that there was a deception to deceive the earth, and that now they call us flat earthers, but that's just the nature of where we live. It's not a new religion. It's not a faith. It's been revealed, and people are hypnotized and don't want to look at it and don't want to believe it. The truth of the matter is, we do not live on a spinning ball. There is no such thing as what they've described as outer space, with giant stars thousands of miles away, millions of miles away. It's like the Bible describes it, where the stars move around us and there's a dome over us. But the thing is, it was when I discovered that there was a lie, and it took me years of discovering what are all the things that I believed that I was lied to about. Evolution. Nobody can prove. Science, it's always the theory of evolution, the theory of gravity, the theory of Darwinism. These are just theories. I can have theories too. Keanu Reeves has a theory we all live in a matrix and that you can unplug from it, and we're not, the computer simulation theory, people are cool with that. It's really creative. They love that. But if your theory includes Satan and that all the teachers and the scientists and the news media were all deceived and are all believing bullshit. But the final deception, the second level, which is what made me think it has to be Satan, is that in the program, in the hypnotic spell, when you're presented with the information that will wake you up from your hypnotic spell, you'll have this knee-jerk reaction to laugh and mock and hate the bearer of bad news. I don't know if that's a biblical story or not, but don't kill the messenger. I've lost all my friends and my family. They didn't come right out and say, we don't want to know you anymore because you believe this crazy thing we don't believe. Reality is, I have lost all my friends and family in the last couple of years. But the thing is, I've never met anybody, and I've told everybody, people I've loved, people I've talked for years, about what I discovered and how I no longer believe in a globe earth and that I am a flat earther, I guess. There's no way I can prove the flat earth. It's just there. I can't prove error, but I know it exists. But I do believe, but it's not a leap of faith. I've seen plenty of evidence, hours and hours and probably weeks worth of evidence, disproving and proving the fact that there was a lie set out and that people believed a deception. And the lie was set out to make people not believe in God. And on all these different levels, it worked. If you don't believe the Bible is literal, there's a movie where at the end the line was, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was just making people believe he didn't exist. And the idea that you keep on finding stuff like history has been corrupted. Everyone's been deceived by the historical narrative. There was an advanced civilization not that long ago that they've tried to destroy all evidence of. It looks like there was a huge flood that covered everything in sand, and that there was a time when there were great cities where every city across the flat realm known as Earth looked like the most beautiful architecture you've ever seen in Rome. Greco-Roman architecture, statues, every state capital, that kind of building. They had electricity in the old days. They had flying ships, way advanced. Something happened and wiped out everybody, and they repopulated this area and gave us a fake story. My family ridiculed me my whole life about how I lived my life and mistakes I made. It's weird, and I think that's Satan. Part of the deception. In my family, I figured out they're calling it narcissistic personality disorder. You know how a lot of people are talking about how narcissism is ruling the world. Everybody's a narcissist. Well, it's like this ego. It's the ego. It's the original sin. And again, Satan in Bible. When Satan came down, he told Eve that if she disobeyed God, she would be like him. And that she should do that, disobey God, eat the apple. Well, he lied to her, but that was Satan had an ego where he was jealous of God. And it isn't just jealousy like he wanted his position. It's that part of our ego, and everyone has it because we're all fallen nature, that feels jealous. And people who are narcissists, who are really bad, they might even be your own mother. But your happiness will bring out their unhappiness. Your goodness, they'll resent you for it. Or it might just come out in teasing. Indians do this all the time. We just tease each other. But there's a mean-spiritedness behind that. And I think that's narcissism. I think that's the original sin. But it's also been so weird. And I still do it because I'm fascinated. Because people still bring up topics that will make me have to go, no, I don't believe in the moon landing. There's a million reasons, but here's one thing. Have you ever thought of this? Did you know that they say they went there and back 6 different times with 6 different crews within 3 years? That's the official story. It isn't just they landed once on the moon and then they lost all the data, and you know the story if you're a flat earther. But people, they won't comment on it. It's like they get weird. And they'll laugh at you and mock you and dismiss you, but they'll never show you the respect to go, I'm going to have to rethink this. And so I lost all my friends and family because I also noticed that they couldn't give me any respect. Not only did they not respect me, they were incapable of showing respect. And they're also completely brainwashed by their education, by their politics, and by alcohol. And now I see this, now that I've woken up from alcohol and I've woken up from the deception of globe earth models, of the fake history models, all this stuff, all the things, they'll call you a conspiracy theorist to dismiss you. And you can say funny stuff to counter it. It's like, do you even know what those words mean? A conspiracy, that means people conspired. They got together and made plans. That's all that means. A theory is that you think some people got together and made plans. But when people say conspiracy, like I have a conspiracy theory, a carpenter built my home, maybe many. I have a theory based on my own logic and my education, and I'm not an idiot, that at some point in the past, maybe in the 50s, some guys conspired and built my home. Yeah, okay, I'm a conspiracy theorist. I have other theories that are based on, I'm not an idiot. But if you tell them you don't believe in the moon landing, because you have to say it in those terms. What are your beliefs? Do you have faith in the moon landing? It's like a religion. It's like saying you are rejecting their religion, science. Say, no, I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is either a fool or a liar. Because I don't believe he's a scientist. I don't think he goes to a lab somewhere and does science, whatever that means. But I do know that everything he's ever said is a lie and stupid. But I also know he's the most famous scientist of our time. He's Einstein of 2023, guys. He will go down in history. Next will be Bill Nye the Science Guy, another stand-up comedian who got a TV show and now are the scientific priests. But still, so they mock anybody who would challenge mainstream thoughts about any of this, because you're also challenging high school science. You're challenging the stupid baby boomers who are proud of the other boomers who went to the moon, allegedly, and played golf, and bothered to drive a dune buggy up there. They didn't have the foresight to put in a toilet in any spaceship that went to the moon. The first time a NASA spacecraft had indoor plumbing was the Space Shuttle Challenger in 1984, which blew up in 1985, 86, whatever. By their stupid logic. I think those rockets are just helium balloons. Not because I'm a genius, because I've seen videos that prove they're helium balloons. They make fake smoke. I don't need to disprove. Because the thing is, if people wanted to know the truth, they could have figured it out. I'd heard people had questioned the ball before I discovered that it wasn't a ball. And I scoffed and had a negative reaction. But I got over it pretty quickly when I opened my mind. All right, how far are we? I always get sidetracked into talking about flat Earth when I go live on this. I might as well call that a show. I don't have anything good for my live show. So thank you for letting me just riff. And tune in tomorrow morning for Boozhoo, NANABOOZHOO. I'm going to try to come on at 6. But otherwise, I will see you again. Giga Wabamin Minoa.